Shalom TV's coverage of the 10th anniversary Limmud conference is made possible in part by a grant from Dr. Naomi Vilko, in honor of her mother, Olga Vilko, and in memory of her father, William Vilko.
Great. So I think we're going to get started. I want to welcome everyone here today. There is a lot of data here in the Pew study. A lot of data, and some of the biggest highlights that have come out, the things that I've seen in the press mostly, have been a couple numbers, right? 94% of U.S. Jews say they're proud to be Jewish. Sounds like great news. 3/4 of U.S. Jews say they have a strong sense of belonging to the Jewish people. There's also a lot of data about how Jewish identity is changing, that Jews have a very broad view of our identities. And I wanted to have you take some of this apart a little bit. Can you help us decipher some of these findings? Should we be surprised by any of this? And what are some of the things for those, most of us in the room who have not read the whole study, what are some of the most important things that we should be noticing and paying attention to in the study?
As you were speaking, I thought of a line of Ben Gurion, and Sam Norich, a few others will be able to correct me. He said, "It doesn't matter what the Goyim say; it matters what the Jews do." Is that what he said? He said, so in this case, it doesn't matter what the Jews feel; it matters what the Jews do. And so that so many Jews feel proud to be Jewish in this day and age doesn't speak to the health of American Jewry. It indicates, it reflects the fact that when I was in grad school, there was just a study done that showed that Jews were the least admired white ethnic group in America. And in 2009, Robert Putnam found out that Jews were the most admired religious group in America. So we have moved from the most outsiders to the most insiders. You know, when President Obama appointed the fourth Jewish head of the Federal Reserve in a row, you know, we were relieved. Abe Foxman can now he can retire. And but that wasn't good enough. He wanted to really make sure that the economy is in good shape. And Jack Lew of Riverdale in his Orthodox meeting, that wasn't enough. So he had to bring in a Habonim boy from Israel to serve as vice chair, just to keep an eye on Janet Yellen. So we are well beyond the feelings of exclusion, and of course we're proud to be Jewish. Who wouldn't be proud to be Jewish? Who wouldn't be proud of all these great Jews who are running around, running our country, and trying to keep it safe from the Tea Party? So, so that to me is not really, and so it's a lot easier to be proud to be Jewish. But what's really critical, and I think that's where I hope we'll talk about. If I had one finding to pick on, it's the ongoing and impending decline of the Jewish population that is not Orthodox, and the number of children who are not Orthodox is about 30% less than the number of middle-aged adults who are not Orthodox. There are two drivers of this decline, and then I'll turn it over. One is the low fertility. We need 2.1 children to stay even. We're averaging around 1.7, but they're not all Jewish. And the reason they're not all Jewish is that there's been an explosion of intermarriage. And I was surprised when I learned that of all non-Orthodox Jews who married in the last 13 years, 72% of them had married non-Jews. Roughly 7 out of 10, 3 out of 10 married Jews. And intermarried Jews produce Jewish children at a far lower rate than unmarried Jews, obviously. 43% of people who had a single Jewish parent grew up to say that they're Jewish, but their Jewishness is not so so solid, given the fact that so many of them say, when they ask the first time, are you Jewish? They say, no, not that way. And the second time they say yes. They're split between the Jews with no religion and Jews with a religion. And the 43% heavily marry non-Jews. In the last 13 years, again, about 91% of Jews with one Jewish parent married non-Jews, such that only around 9% of the grandchildren of intermarried people are Jewish. As a result of all this, we are now in a drastic population meltdown, and there's been a tsunami of intermarriage that has hit all the low-lying areas. Low-lying areas, Jews who were not raised conservative or Orthodox, or Jews with a weak Jewish education, or Jews with one Jewish parent. Those parts of our population all experience 80% or more intermarriage in the last 13 years, and they are being wiped out by the tsunami of intermarriage and assimilation. It's really, really that bad. I'm saying this loudly in many respects because I think the American Jewish community hasn't understood it. We told them in 2000, we told them in 1990. They haven't understood. I want us to understand that.
Great, thank you. Thank you. So, Sam, I want to follow up to that with a question to you. So, Stephen is presenting this as a drastic population meltdown based on the data. And I would just like to hear from you a little bit more about the response in the Jewish world so far. Has the response been mostly what Stephen's talking about? What have you seen?
The response has ranged from, what was the phrase? Is our house on fire? To, we knew this, nothing new. And I think the prevalent response has really been nothing new. I think something is new. And I think we need to not only contend with it, in a way I think we need to make peace with it. We used to distinguish between us and Americans. I lead a newspaper that goes back 117 years. And in the first 2-3 generations, it was us and Americans. It was them and us. Nowadays, I think we are them. All of us, except a few, maybe 10%, have non-Jews in our families. We are them. We think of ourselves like other Americans. And the Jewish community, or the center of the Jewish community, has to stop thinking like it's us and them. We've got to somehow make peace with the non-Jews who regard themselves as Jews, or might. We've got to start thinking about these trends as not simply trends of the last 20 years, 40 years. We've got to take a longer perspective. And I don't know where things will be in 2 generations from now. Whether we will be, in fact, not 6 million, but 3 million, or 9 million. More and more of America is thinking of itself as Jewish. It's not only Jon Stewart. And we're clearly evolving a group identity that involves others, or people who used to be called others. One last comment. There's a wrong way to read the Pew study. The wrong way to read the Pew study is to say, there's 2 ways of avoiding assimilation. Either you're Haredi, or you go on Aliyah. I'm not convinced that either one is a way to avoid assimilation, but let's grant the premise. The vast majority of Orthodox Jews are Haredi Jews. I lived for 30 years in Teaneck and made the mistake of thinking that the majority of Orthodox Jews are modern Orthodox Jews. It's not true. The vast majority are Haredi Jews, ultra-Orthodox. And what Jewish identity in Israel will be in 2 generations from now, we also don't know. We're evolving something that is unprecedented. And I think we need to think about it and act about it mit Kopf.
Great, thank you. So Anne, I just wanted to follow up with you, and so we've heard a couple responses. Stephen helped us decipher and gave a little bit of a response to what he saw in the study, and Sam as well. So I wanted to hear your thinking about what you saw, what was most important to you about the study. What is it that you're thinking about after reading the study?
Sure. So perhaps I'm one of those who had a slightly different take on the study. Just by way of intro, the Workmen's Circle has 113 years of strong engagement of cultural Jewish communities, cultural Jewish and social justice focused communities. So for us, the lines of Pew are very close to the demographic that we've been engaging incredibly successfully for over 100 years. Perhaps I should qualify that and say, in the last few years, things have changed for us too, and we've had to go back and reevaluate how we can engage, but there's a really strong history. So the numbers that I took from Pew as an opportunity to connect and engage and welcome are 1.2 million. It's that Jews of no religion category that I want to start by saying I find offensive. Terming Jews who largely say they're proud to be Jewish, they have a strong sense of belonging to the Jewish people, that they identify with working for justice and equality as their Jewish identity, and 55% say leading an ethical life is their Jewish identity. To me, that's not Jews of no religion, that's Jews. That's Jews who I respect, admire, and want to welcome to organizations across the board, but particularly to my organization and the Jewish world. So I understand why that Pew used terminology, but I want to caution this audience that terminology is dangerous, it's alienating, and it reflects a mindset that I think I'm really seconding most of what you said, Sam, and maybe taking a little further, a mindset that has really led us to growing a population of just Jews who are very suspect of the organized Jewish world. So it's a time to engage, welcome, and ask them what it is they're looking for in their Jewish identity.
Great, thank you. So why don't we move into that a little bit about what should the response be of the Jewish community? What has the response been so far, and what should the response be of the Jewish community? And Stephen, maybe you want to take this first. You talked a little bit about our house is on fire, so can you follow that up with, if you have recommendations, what are your recommendations for the Jewish community?
Well, first I would underscore what Ann said and urge you to look at a different population. And this study found, and Sam and I go way back on this, I think we're all in alliance, that Jews to the outside American world define themselves as religion. And Jews inside, when asked, well, what is being Jewish, what's important to you, and they're given the choice in this study, religion, culture, ancestry. The vast majority pick culture and ancestry of the Jews with religion. So I would say to you, just because they said their religion is Jewish, don't believe that they don't belong in the Workmen's Circle or other endeavors. In fact, the heartland of American Jewry is ethnic, cultural, ancestral, political, all that stuff. And Jews are a people who happen to have a religion, which is the way I regard myself as a secular Jew who's moderately observant, with affiliations with Orthodoxy, Conservative, and Reform.
is it safe to say one size just doesn't fit all? And further than that, can we just look at society today, look at Americans, and say one size no longer fits all? The demographics have changed so exponentially.
It was, when I was a boy, one size didn't fit all, but we had fewer sizes.
Sure.
And if you had a pair of shoes, they fit every day. And now, this
Have
is...
you ever tried to find a pair of jeans?
Right. So what Pew testified to, but it's been growing in the study of American social identity, which includes religion and ethnicity and all kinds of other identities, is first of all, there's an incredibly wider array of identities out there. This applies to Jews and to America. Two, Jews and others change their identities a lot more frequently. The Pew study didn't report this, but I knew it as the consultant. There were 1% of the Jewish sample started out in the survey. They were asked, you have a Jewish parent? They go, yeah. By the middle of the study, when they asked, was your mother Jewish, was your father Jewish? They said, no. And they were dropped out of the sample because it was confusing. So people inside, either they were confused or they changed their minds. And there's research on, not from people, but from others that show that people change their ethnicity 6 months later. Are you Italian? Yeah. What are you now? I'm Irish. They have some legitimacy. So with Jews, you have all these people floating around Jewish, not Jewish, Kal v'chama, with all the more so. They change within being Jewish, and they're highly idiosyncratic. The reason Chabad is so successful, because it's not like the Roach Motel. It used to be the Roach Motel, you can check in, but you can't check out. With Chabad, you can check in, you can check out. You can run in, you can run out. And that's why they can be around now in the 21st century, and they couldn't do Gornisht in 1970. So for me, the major takeaway is that it really underscores Ann's work is there's room for lots of us to do Jewish organizing, and we should. Last point. On the intermarriage question, for that, we actually know what to do. Connect Jews. It's not about Jewish meaning, feeling good, better product, better sermons. It's not that. It's about creating Jewish social networks between and among young Jews who are each other's sources of romances and dates, either directly or by referral. And the way we can do that is Jewish camp, Israel travel, Jewish youth groups, getting non-Orthodox personnel on the campus, which were deeply understaffed, and creating Jewish film festivals, Moshe houses, outreach workers in young adult years in Jewish development zones, which are areas of heavy concentration of Jewish young adults, like from 23rd Street to Prospect Park. That's really, there's a huge number, the more Jewish young adults in that area than has ever lived together, since Alexandria. So for intermarriage purposes, we need to connect Jews. For engagement purposes, we need to throw out a series of Jewish engagement opportunities which are non-conventional, non-traditional, but actually speak to the Jews, and you're totally on target.
Great. Sam, I just wanted to follow up on what Stephen was saying about what we should be doing. What's your thinking about what we as a Jewish community, many of us in the room, there's lots of people here at the conference, there's lots of people, certainly a lot of articles in the press of lots of different takes about what we should be doing. What are you thinking?
I give Samuel Gomper's answer, more. But I think we need to say more than more. If you look at the social things, I agree with Steve's premise that we ought to focus more on what Jews do than on what Jews believe. I think it'll be more insightful and will guide action better. And we ought to focus particularly on what Jews do with other Jews. What are the social networks that Jews participate in more than others? In America, the social networks that Jews participate in center around the synagogue. they engage more Jews than any other Moshe House, Limmud, Jewish Film Festival, other things. But they only engage about 1/3 of the Jews. It's not that the other 2/3 haven't heard about a synagogue. They've chosen not to go there. So the most intensive is the religious community. They get together more often than anybody else. They deal with each other more often than anybody else. They participate in Jewish social time more than anybody else. But they are a minority. I would say it in a very radical way. Religious identification is a Procrustean bed for American Jews. That is the framework.
Listening, Procrustean.
Without going into Greek mythology, it's an uncomfortable place. You don't quite fit in the frame. American Jews are identified in America religiously through Protestant lenses. We belong in that Jewish religious category. That's not the way we think about ourselves, first and foremost. First and foremost, we think about ourselves in terms of ancestry. Okay? Ancestry and culture. I also think of myself as a Jew by religion, but first and foremost, ancestry. And there is no social framework or network where that kind of identification brings us together frequently. We have to create them. Limmud is one. Jewish film festivals are one. We've invented others, but they still engage a minority of the Jewish social time. We need to multiply that, make it more. We can't simply put all our eggs in the religious basket. I'm not saying we should drop the religious basket. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that after 2 generations of seeing that the religious basket doesn't bring in the majority of the Jews, we should devise and foster other baskets.
Great. Thank you. So, Anne, maybe you want to talk about that a little bit, about what is happening today in the landscape of other baskets. What's going on? What do you know about? Certainly, I work at Chazon. You're at Workman's Circle. What's the other baskets, and how effective are they? How effective have they been so far?
Okay, so Cheryl, I just want to start with a short response to what you were saying, Sam, and maybe just adding my thoughts to it. I also have a background as a union organizer, which was critical to my joining the Workman's Circle, which has a background in the trade union movement as well. And we had a saying in my last job, which was organize, organize, organize. And that's really what we have to do now. A key part of organizing is dismiss the idea, if you build it, they will come. And to some degree, I feel like that's a problem in the Jewish world. We don't know the answers because they're not here. They're us and they're not here. There's one, I'm focusing today on the 1.2 million just proudly Jews. We don't know everything that brings us to communities, that brings them to community. We don't really know what's making them tick other than some headlines. We have to ask. We have to engage. We have to welcome. So the first step is really to go and ask and invite and just listen. The Workman's Circle is part of a growing world of Jewish organizations committed to a secular Jewish life. I mean, through social justice, through learning, through community, through very, very strong, rich cultural community. And we right now are asking the questions. We're going out and organizing new communities of just proud Jews and saying, how do you want to connect with us? Here's what we've been doing for 100+ years. How do you want to do it? Do you want to connect with us around this rich cultural heritage through celebrations, through camp, through connections to each other, through food, through history, dance, arts. And we're engaging them around learning. I mean, we're taking Jewish families and connecting them and then creating after school programs to engage them and their kids.
And what's that mean, a cultural Jew? I mean, you're talking about being a cultural Jew versus being a religious Jew. What can you define that a little bit more so that maybe we understand, maybe we all think we have different vocabulary for what we mean?
So cultural Jews, the Jews of the Workmen's Circle, I want to say what we are. We're a group who meaningfully connects to our Jewish identity. We celebrate Jewish traditions. We come together and collectively act around progressive causes. We learn, we dance, we celebrate life cycle events. We have B'nai Mitzvahs, which are some of the most moving experiences I challenge you to ever see. We connect as citizens of the Jewish community and citizens of the world community. What we don't do is follow religious observances. So we're not teaching our kids to pray, but we're teaching them to respect the world around them and to engage in the world around them and apply a Jewish lens to their 360-degree life.
Thank you.
So,
yeah.
Anne's work, and then Anne's and so many of the rest of us work in creating an alternate definition of being Jewish, like or legitimating it the way Sam spoke about, is really very critical. And give you an example from last night. I was speaking to somebody, Jewishly committed family. Mother happens to be Israeli. Father's very active in Jewish life. They have a son. They have a grandson. The son is married to a Filipino woman. And they tell me the woman is active in raising the kid as a Jew, but will not convert because she doesn't want to offend her mother. So I said to these people, I said, she really can become Jewish without changing her religion. If she wants to stay Roman Catholic, she can become Jewish. And I haven't won that fight, but I've written about this, that there ought to be a way to do what I call Jewish cultural affirmation, or some other better term, I don't know what it is, given the fact that we're not just a religion, so pick up the other stuff. Noah Kushner, Rabbi Noah Kushner, Reform rabbi in San Francisco, runs a Jewish community. It's called The Kitchen. What's The Kitchen for? People who want to do Jewish stuff. That doesn't mean necessarily Jews. It could be other people. So I really want to pick up on that there are two types of people in the world: those who divide the world into two and those who don't. I'm in the other category. There are those who are kind of right wing and think intermarriage is horrible and it's bad for the Jews and we got to clamp down. And there's another group that says no, don't talk about it. Open up all the doors, bring them in. I'm both. I'm a Jewish evangelical. I want to keep the Jews we have and get the people we don't have by any way, shape, or form. And I think we need both a conservative and a liberal agenda. We need both red solutions and blue solutions. Essentially, we need purple solutions.
You're talking about something that's pretty radical, actually, in our Jewish community today. That it seems to me like a lot of, when I think about Christianity, I think about people out there, right, trying to come in, welcome. You're married to someone who's Christian, come in and welcome, come be part of us. What you're talking about is something actually very radical. The Jewish community, certainly in the Jews by religion, has been, there's a lot of obstacles to becoming Jew by religion, but you're actually talking about something different, and I'm really interested in reaction.
It is indeed a radical proposal, but I think it's awake to the times. Let me suggest another similarly radical notion. I learned 6 weeks ago at Edgar Bronfman's Shiva that he had once gone across Lexington Avenue on 53rd Street to City Corp headquarters to speak with Sandy Weil and to ask Sandy Weil to make a major contribution to Hillel. And he said to Weil, you care about Jewish students as much as I do. Why aren't you doing what I'm doing? And Weil said, I do care, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm head of Cornell Weil Medical Center. I care about Jewish students. That's why I'm head of Cornell Weil Medical Center. There are institutions in our society that Jews have flocked to. Certain universities, certain professions, the Democratic Party. We should think of these as places in which to organize.
Thank you. So, Anne, you've been talking about Workmen's Circle, and there's actually a bunch of organizations that are non-movement affiliated. I have a former colleague who has one of those great hyphenated last names, Italian Jewish, right? And he was raised in a non-religious atmosphere completely. And he said that he ended up working in the Jewish community because he became involved in Jewish life again in college by getting involved with AEPI. So, Stephen, maybe you can start with this. What do we know about the multiple generational efficacy of weak affiliation programs? Maybe, I'm defining this, but meaning JDate or AEPI, right? You may have to be Jewish, you may not have to be Jewish. That's what I mean by weak affiliation.
Look, we don't have precise evidence on any of these things. The way drug companies do their tests, and even their suspect, is they randomly assign people, you're all sick, 2 of you get the medicine and 2 of us get the placebo. And then we see what happens. Like that's called an ethical drug study. So, so we can't do that with Jews. We can't say, all right, look, Seth, you're going to the weak program over there, and Susan, we're going to put you in the strong program over there, give you the same parents. We don't have exact, but on the basis of years of research and what I can see, something is better than nothing, a lot. And then something very good is a little bit better than something good. So to take that, Jewish camp. I've done studies with others of the long-range impact of Jewish camp, and the camps that people went to were not really great. They were okay. They're not URJ camp, Camp Ramah. I did a study of different programs, Israel programs, ranging from the JFK programs to, again, Nifty and Ramah and all the best ones. JFK program is a program where kids met for the first time at JFK. And my overall feeling was the JFK program was worth a 75 and the Camp Ramah was worth a 95. So you can make them better, but 0 is a lot worse than 75. That's my overall take on so-called weak programs. They're much better than nothing, not as good as the greatest programs. Now, last point is social networks, social concentration really is, and the themes that we've all been talking about, really is so critical. So we've mentioned Jewish film festivals. Mary and I, my wife and I, last month went to see Bethlehem on the Upper West Side. And there were people standing in line, they couldn't get in. They're waiting for people not to show up, they'll buy tickets. Now, we've also been to shul once in a while. The shul has lots of empty seats. The film festivals are crowded to the they have standing room only. Why don't we build so many film festivals, and I'll add other things as well, such that we have some empty seats in film festivals? Why do we tolerate empty seats in shul, but not empty seats in film festivals? So, and at that film festival, not only did we have a Jewish experience watching Bethlehem and wondering about it, but we were like saying hello to all our buddies and shaking hands and talking and where you been, and then next Shabbos and this thing, and I sat next to a guy who made Aliyah in 1933 from Germany and is now here. He's like 85 years old, and I had a wonderful experience. This is real stuff. So if you put Jews together, they create connections. Last part about that. I was speaking in Philadelphia, and I was trying to say, why do you guys in Philadelphia have such a low intermarriage rate compared to San Francisco? Do you think it's because your rabbis are really give great sermons, the educators here are so much better than ones in San Francisco? No, because in Philadelphia, Jews live in a few major neighborhoods. We know what they are. In San Francisco, when I did a study of San Francisco Jewry, I got 1,400 respondents back from the J, the newspaper, and I had 1,400 zip codes. Unless I had one Jew, one zip code. You can't build a community with one Jew, one zip code. I mean, so anyway, so my point is, in answer to your question, pretty schlock Jewish educational things are actually pretty good. Better Jewish educational things are even better.
And I just want to respond and say I disagree on one level. I don't think Shlach programs are okay. And I don't think we can settle for Shlach programs. I think we have to work, and we're personally working to create the best programs that engage. The new community out there, the community we're organizing, is looking for top drawer. And by the way, they're looking for top drawer at bargain basement prices. But they're not going to settle. Our camp has amazing Jewish programs. And I know Ramah was here. I saw the kids engaging. Camps these days have raised the bar. Our educational program, we're all talking about experiential learning. There's experiential learning programs in all the major universities. I mean, we're saying to our families, come to us. We're not going to expect you to sit at a desk and take in knowledge. You're going to be part of the knowledge collection and engagement. So times they're changing, and maybe anything is better than nothing, but don't settle for nothing.
Just a couple more questions. How does this study, the Pew study, compare with the recent Jewish population study of New York? What's similar? What's different?
So I'll give one point of comparison. The New York study found essentially that the two ends of the Jewish identity spectrum, pardon me for making it one-dimensional, the Haredi end and the borderland Jewish end, which is what I have no other term to describe it. Those two ends of the population were growing, and proportionally and numerically, the middle of the population, best designated by such terms as conservative reform, with all due apologies, but that's what I'm talking about, that group was in decline. For example, Orthodox Jews in Pew were 10% of the adults, 27% of the children, 35% of children 0 to 4 years old, and 53% of those who were in marrying in the last 13 years. In New York, Orthodox respondents were 20% of the population. There were 32% of the 20% of the households, 32% of the population, 61% of the Jewish children, and 74% of the Jewish children within the 5 boroughs. There were more Hasidic Orthodox Jewish children in the New York 8-county area than there are conservative and reform children put together. Those types of patterns, booming Orthodoxy, especially but not only Haredi, and booming borderland Jews, somewhat Jewish, in and out, hybrid, Jewish and Christian, all that stuff, partially Jewish, that's the major point of resemblance between the New York study and the Pew study. And once I saw the Pew study, because I'd done the New York study, I had full faith and credit in not the nomenclature so much, but certainly the major patterns and results that I saw in Pew. They corresponded with what we know from New York.
Thank you. Great. So let me open it up to some questions from you. Let me start with you back there.
So the question is, by having activities without a kosher menu, are we excluding the Orthodox and people who are from... So I will tell you, the vast majority of our activities do not include food. Well, that's not fair to say, but like when we have programs, movies, whatever, that's musical events. Typically, it does not. When we do have activities with food, we usually have a piece that says, if you're requesting a kosher meal, let us know. And we tend to keep things kosher style. We always keep things kosher style. But for people who wish a kosher meal, we've always accommodated them. I can only tell you that we are speaking to our demographic. It's interesting, there's a growing population for whom Jewish food and cuisine is a key connector. And you'll find that the vast majority of it is not glot kosher. This Friday night, I'm attending something called a pop-up Shabbat in Greenpoint. It's put up by an independent new organization, a young people. It's 6 courses celebrating our Russian Jewish heritage, not kosher at all. I went to a program, I went to a party in New York, fully attended, called Woks and Lox. It celebrated our Jewish Chinese culture. It was food that was all Jewishly inclined, Jewish style, not kosher, full of Jews. I guess there is a dividing line to some degree, and some of these events are not, the food events, may not include everyone's dietary restrictions, but they are connecting. And again, we've got the vast majority of Jews out there are looking to connect around this wide array of food. So a lot of our programs you could happily attend. Some of them, you might not enjoy as much.
I just want to, this is a part of a larger issue. And I want to show you, my home is kosher. Pesach, you can eat in my house. I also want to, at the same time, I want to say, for Jews who are treif, being treif is a matter of their Jewish identity. I grew up eating Chinese food every Sunday night with my mother and father, eating spare ribs. Spare ribs was Jewish. Ham is not Jewish. Lobster and shrimp are Jewish.
Octopus is not.
Octopus is not. Nachon. Eel. Whoever heard of an eel? So I'm really, I understand, certainly, the Israeli army, I'd like the Israeli army to be kosher, but if kids, as they do on post, want to cook treif together, they're all non-dati, it's up to them. So we really have these differences. And for the purposes of Klal Yisrael, we need not only to be sensitive to kashrut, we also need to be sensitive to chiloniut, to secularity. And we need to accommodate those Jews who want to be Jewish and eat in ways which many of us can't.
I mean, the proof is in, you're bringing hundreds of people together, and they are this demographic for these events.
Right. Thank you. And second row right there, yeah. As a young Jew, what can he do to counteract these troubling results?
It would be nice to change Jewish communal priorities, and some of us are working on that. You may have some influence. You look like an Orthodox Jew, so I'm going to talk to you as an Orthodox Jew. As an Orthodox Jew, the critical thing you can do is to open up Orthodoxy to the rest of us, to really act as a bridge. You have many people who are with you, by the way. So I want you to know that you're not alone. It's true. And having said what I said about chiloniyut and all that stuff, I want to say that when I think about who can fund, who can work, where we can work on Klal Yisrael and all kinds of other issues, I immediately think of modern Orthodox Jews who are the most generous, the most giving, the most on all these issues. So I say, this is what you can do. What all of us can do, something that not only you can do, is we need to act as if the federations, the major denominations are not going to respond. They don't know what they're doing. Let's put them aside. As individuals, we went through a period in America of public health education. We extended our lifespan. We stopped dying so much from heart disease and stroke. Why? Because we learned how to eat and how to exercise. For Yiddishkeit, for the Jewish people, we can learn how to eat and how to exercise as Jews. It's easy. It's Shabbat. It's camp. It's youth groups. It's Israel. It's culture. All the intensive forms of Jewish life actually make a difference. So what can you do? You could tell your friends, do this, the stuff we're doing, and help them. Build personal relationships. Tell grandparents, and there are a few in the room, I think, tell grandparents, if you possibly can, tell your children any Jewish education that your child wants to go through. If cost is a problem, come to us. That's what the money's there for. So there are things we can do as individuals, and we can't wait for the organized Jewish community to respond.
Great, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to take some from this side in the back over there. Yeah.
Yeah, he asked, what major Jewish organizations can be doing to engage that 1.2 million. I think for starters, organizations across the board have to take away their fences. It can't, we won't succeed if the Jewish world is full of organizations who are all acting on their own. They have to start creating coalitions. They have to, and it's about organizing. I mean, it's about asking. I don't think any of us can answer that. We have to go to the 1.2 million. If we build it, I assure you they're not coming unless they're part of the building. So we have to get to them. We have to ask them how they wish to engage, and then we have to work with them to do that engagement.
And I would actually add to that and just say the major Jewish organizations can be funding creative new projects. I think there is a plethora of major new projects out there, and there are a lot of the major federations are. In New York, our federation is funding creative new programs a lot. I think that to see that could really be expanded. We're talking about more is more, Stephen, and I think that there's a lot of just seeing what is out there and seeing what works and taking some risks.
In response to your question still, under the heading of Hakarat HaTov, of recognizing the good, the reform movement has, I think, done more in this regard than anybody else, simply by accepting patrilineal descent 3 decades ago. And that, I think, has brought hundreds of thousands of previously Christian people into the Jewish community. Some parts of the Jewish community don't regard them as Jewish still, but that ought to be recognized. And I would go further, and I would say that in the early 70s, Steve and I and thousands of others were part of a movement that sought to shift the priorities of federations away from things like hospitals towards things like schools. I think it's time for another revolution like that, a mobilization that focuses on the priorities of the federations, which is where the money is. It's the answer to Dillinger. Focuses on the priorities of federations and demands that they, in fact, shift some of their identity dollars towards bringing people in, and not only towards keeping people in.
Thank you.
Alongside the welcoming and we'll meet you where you are and so forth and so on, we also have to have principles and demands. So we have to stand for something. And so we how do you combine those two things? How do you combine the openness, the embrace, the come as you are, along with, and this is who we are at the same time. So we can have conflicting principles. But as Sam told me, what is it? If I have principles, if you don't like them, I have some others. Was that Groucho? But we have to present, so when Abba comes forth, it says, look, we're not for everybody. This is what we believe in. The forward projects a certain philosophy, Chazon, and myself. So I think we need to combine those two. We need to combine the welcoming along with the moral demands. Being Jewish is good. Being Jewish does good things for the world. Being Jewish means good principles. We believe in that. And not being Jewish is wrong.
Thank you. Yes, in the front.
The question was about, there's a conservative shul where they had certain requirements about who could be on the bima and who couldn't. Look, I happen to be on the side, if I'm asked by conservative rabbis, do everything you can except what the halacha prohibits you from doing. So you should know that on policy, I would like your son-in-law to be up on the bima. However, we have to, there are reform and reconstruction shuls and some conservative shuls where this wouldn't be a problem. In all Orthodox shuls, it wouldn't be a problem because he wouldn't even ask. So there are conservative shuls. Understand that the rabbi who made that decision, as the Mara Da'atra, as the the rabbinical decider on the spot, that rabbi was acting out of principle. He or she believes that the principle is that non-Jews should not be on the bima for whatever reason. Let us respect that and say, if you don't believe in that, that's okay. That's the way conservative Jews want to practice conservative Judaism. Go to a different shul. I really think that and again, I'm arguing for treif Jews. I'm arguing for Hasidic Jews. I'm arguing that let all Jews be the Jews they want to be, and let us go out and organize our own communities and join those communities that are appropriate for us. Your son-in-law and your daughter belong in a different shul. They should go to a different shul. They shouldn't drop out of shuls.
In the back, in the pink shirt, yeah. Thank you. You asked about the economics of Judaism. Is it better to give everything away for free? Should we charge? Should we charge what it costs? Which actually is, working in the not-for-profit, I can tell you more than usually we do charge. I know that's true for Limmud. So what should we be doing? What do we know from this? What should we be learning?
I can speak to our experience in organizing new communities, and it requires a lot of resources to create those programs. But the goal we've set is for those communities in a certain amount of time to become sustainable. So sustainable with the programmatic support of the larger organization. So we work with our communities and in the beginning resource them quite heavily, and then hope to be able to set them up so that they can continue. I recently had the chance to evaluate a lot of different legacy and new communities, both with and without buildings. And I'll tell you, one of the findings was having a building turned out to be a very cost-prohibitive engagement. So something that we're doing now is intentionally creating very flexible communities and finding space and renting inexpensive space, which gives us so much greater reach than when we're tied to a building.
And I would just add that at Chazon, one of the things that we've tried to do for all of the programs that we run is we've tried to ask funders who are really interested in everything we're talking about to actually give money to bring cohorts of people to some of our programs. So we've had success where we've had 20 people from Colorado coming to our food conference because it's funded, or 20 people from Detroit, or 20 people who are under the age of 30, or 20 rabbinical students. And so people who really care about giving opportunities to people who can't afford to come to programs like Limmud New York have sometimes stepped forward and funded opportunities for people so that there's actually opportunities for the whole community to participate. Yes.
You guys, for many of you may not know, the Workmen's Circle has an amazing camp called Camp Kindering in the Hudson Valley, and it's 88 years old, has thousands of alumni across the country, and I think it's truly a great example of the kinds of community we're talking about because it welcomes Jews from every walk of life. It is kosher style, and it has a lot of vegetarian options. It is an amazing Jewish experience, and the kids who come out of Camp Kindering talk about their Jewish identity and the social justice and the activities and then the sports and the culture in ways that you can't imagine. So we have an amazing camp that really is a focal point of the kinds of community we're building.
Is it going to be kosher?
We find we're able to welcome, the people who are coming to us are incredibly happy, and in fact the chef we have is CIA trained, and that's actually a very big benefit too. But the kids are thrilled there. So that's what's important, I think, to talk about here is what makes people happy and what makes people connect. I'm hoping that one of the takeaways you're all going to have is my organization, Cheryl's organization, Sam's newspaper, we're creating connections. Remember, I do agree, there's a house on fire. Just looking at those 1.2 million, they want to connect, but they're not feeling welcome. Let's stop looking at sort of what's on the side. Let's welcome them on every level. I'm telling you, I have a spectacular camp that's welcoming people from many affiliations across the board. That, I think, is an amazing experience.
And thank you. So I just have one last question. The buzzword in the Jewish community has been Jewish continuity for a long time. Is that still the buzzword that we should be using? Is there something here that we can learn? I'll ask all of you too, is there a different buzzword that we can kind of put forward as a new, what we're going towards, what our vision is in the Jewish community? Let me ask you, I'll ask you too.
Again, I like to complicate things. So somehow to get another word like continuity and diversity, variety and continuity, somehow to get these two notions together, because we want to continue, but we want to allow for the variations that are exploding in front of our eyes, so somehow we need some term or dual terms that capture, in a sense, both ends, the keva and the kavana, the fixed and the expansive. Somehow we need to do that. So continuity is a good start, but it's not enough.
I think we ought to pay attention to the people who haven't had anything to be continuous with. That is to say, people who are trying to reconnect with a tradition and an identity that maybe for a generation or three they've had really no contact with whatsoever. That we ought to create places where people can not only practice continuity, but practice retrieval, reconnection.
Nice.
The word that I keep harping on is engagement. I hope everything else happens, but I think what's critical today is that engagement become our buzzword.
Great.
Nice.
Great. Thank you so much. I want to close. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Sam.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support Shalom TV with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the Shalom TV website homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to GEM, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive on DVD with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.